I woke up to divorce papers sliding across my hospital bed tray like a death sentence served with breakfast. The morphine made everything hazy, but those bold black letters cut through the fog with surgical precision. Petition for dissolution of marriage. My wife's signature at the bottom, dated yesterday, while I was still unconscious from spinal surgery. No note, no explanation, just legal documents and the metallic taste of betrayal coating my mouth like blood. My name is Ethan Caldwell, and until 48 hours ago, I thought I had it all figured out. At 34, I'd built Caldwell Tech Solutions from nothing into a multi-million-dollar consultancy. Fortune 500 companies paid premium rates for my cybersecurity expertise. My corner office overlooked downtown, my Porsche sat in the executive parking garage, and my wife Vanessa was the kind of woman who made other men jealous just by existing. We'd been married for 6 years. I met her at a charity gala. She was volunteering, radiant in a simple black dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Vanessa had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room when she smiled at you. Her laugh was infectious, her ambition inspiring. She ran a small but successful lifestyle blog, had dreams of building an empire, and I was more than happy to support those dreams. She moved into my penthouse 3 months after our first date. I proposed on the anniversary of the night we met, using my mother's engagement ring, a 1920s Art Deco piece that had been in the Caldwell family for generations. The wedding was everything she wanted, expensive, elegant, Instagram perfect. I didn't care about the cost. Seeing her happy made every penny worth it. For years, we were that couple everyone envied. She attended my business dinners, charming clients and investors with effortless grace. I supported her content creation, helped her navigate brand partnerships, celebrated every milestone in her growing online presence. When chronic back pain started affecting my work, she was my rock. Doctor's appointments, physical therapy sessions, late nights when the pain kept me awake. Vanessa was there through it all. "We're a team," she'd whisper during those dark 3 a.m. moments when the pain medication wasn't enough. "Whatever happens, we face it together." The surgery was supposed to fix everything. L4-L5 spinal fusion, risky but necessary. My orthopedic surgeon was confident, and Vanessa seemed equally optimistic. The night before the operation, she held my face in her hands and promised she'd be there when I woke up. "I'm not going anywhere, baby. You're stuck with me." I believed her completely. Looking back now, the signs were there, subtle cracks in the foundation I was too trusting to notice. It started with the phone calls. Vanessa had always been social, but in the weeks leading up to my surgery, she was constantly stepping out to take business calls. When I asked about them, she'd brush me off with vague mentions of new brand partnerships or content collaborations. Her laptop became password protected. She started receiving packages addressed to her maiden name, something she hadn't used since our wedding. Then there were the visits to her cousin Maya. Vanessa and Maya had never been particularly close, but suddenly they were having weekly lunch dates. When I suggested joining them, Vanessa would make excuses. "Girl talk? You'd be bored." Or, "Maya's going through relationship drama. She needs space to vent." The most telling sign was her social media behavior. Vanessa's entire brand was built on our relationship. Couple goals content, behind-the-scenes glimpses of our life together, romantic anniversary posts that generated thousands of likes. But in the month before my surgery, those posts became noticeably scarce. When I mentioned it, she claimed she was taking a break from oversharing and wanted to keep some things private. I should have trusted my instincts. The woman who had built her following on documenting every aspect of our relationship suddenly wanted privacy? But I was dealing with constant pain, focused on the upcoming surgery, and I wanted to believe the best about the woman I loved. The night before the operation, as she tucked me into bed and kissed my forehead, something felt different. Her touch was mechanical, perfunctory. She kept checking her phone even during our supposed quiet moments together. When I caught her texting at 11 p.m., she claimed it was her assistant coordinating content for while she'd be off the grid caring for me. "You don't need to put your whole life on hold," I told her, squeezing her hand. "I'll probably sleep through most of the recovery anyway." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I want to be here for you. That's what wives do." Those were the last words she spoke to me as my wife. The morning after I found the divorce papers, a nurse named Patricia brought my breakfast and sat down beside my bed with the kind of expression that meant bad news was coming. "Mr. Caldwell, I need to tell you something. Yesterday, while you were in surgery, your wife came by. She collected your personal belongings from the room, your wallet, clothes, jewelry, and asked us to give you this envelope when you woke up. She said she couldn't stay because of a family emergency." My wedding ring was gone. The Rolex my father gave me for my 30th birthday, gone. Even the get-well cards from my business partners had vanished. "What kind of family emergency?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Patricia's face softened with pity. "She didn't specify, but honey, she didn't look like someone dealing with a crisis. She looked like someone who couldn't get out of here fast enough." That afternoon, I discovered the extent of the damage. My phone had been factory reset. Every joint account, checking, savings, investment portfolios, had been drained down to minimal balances. My credit cards were maxed out with cash advances I'd never authorized. The penthouse felt different when I called my neighbor. She confirmed that movers had come that morning, taking what looked like half the furniture. But the real knife twist came when I saw Vanessa's Instagram story that evening. There she was, perfectly lit by candlelight, tears glistening as she spoke to her phone camera about being abandoned by the person I loved most during his darkest hour. The caption read, "Sometimes the people we trust most show their true colors when we need them. I'm heartbroken, but I'll survive. Sending love to anyone else going through betrayal right now." The comments flooded in, thousands of them. "You deserve so much better, Queen. What a piece of garbage husband. Stay strong, beautiful." Her follower count jumped by 50,000 overnight. Brand collaboration offers started pouring into her DMs. She was monetizing my surgery, turning my medical crisis into her content goldmine. That's when something inside me shifted. The fog of betrayal cleared, replaced by cold, calculating fury. Vanessa thought she was smart, that she'd played the long game and won. She'd underestimated me completely. She forgot that I built my fortune by being 3 steps ahead of everyone else, and she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Over the next week, as I pretended to wallow in depression for the hospital staff, I began assembling the pieces of Vanessa's destruction. My first call was to David Chen, my family's attorney and one of my father's oldest friends. David had handled the legal structure of my business empire, and more importantly, he despised Vanessa with the passion of someone who'd seen through her act from day one. "Ethan, I've been waiting for this call for 6 years, he said when I explained the situation. "That woman is a predator, and now we're going to treat her like one." The beauty of my situation was that Vanessa had no idea how my assets were actually structured. The penthouse she thought she'd get half of, owned by the Caldwell Family Trust, with my father as the primary trustee. The business she assumed would fund her lifestyle, also trust property, requiring unanimous board approval for any major decisions, a board consisting of me, my father, and my Uncle Richard. Even better, I'd been documenting everything since the moment I woke up. Screenshots of her social media posts, time-stamped records of the drained accounts, security footage from the penthouse showing the movers she'd hired. Every piece of evidence meticulously cataloged and stored on encrypted servers. But I needed more than just financial documentation. I needed to prove malicious intent, and for that, I needed an inside source. Enter Maya Rodriguez, Vanessa's cousin, the same Maya who'd been having all those mysterious lunch dates with my wife. Maya and Vanessa had a complicated relationship, rooted in years of family drama and competition. Maya had always resented Vanessa's success, her perfect life, her ability to charm everyone around her. When I reached out to Maya through a mutual friend, she was more than willing to help. "She's been planning this for months," Maya told me during our first phone call. "She showed me text messages with some divorce attorney back in February, bragging about how she just had to play the loving wife until after the surgery, and then she could ghost him and take her payday. She called you pathetic, Ethan, said you were too trusting to see it coming." Maya had been recording their conversations on her phone. Insurance, she called it, in case Vanessa ever turned on her. Now those recordings were going to serve a different purpose entirely. The plan crystallized over the following weeks. I would let Vanessa think she'd won, allow her to continue building her victim narrative while I built an airtight case of fraud, theft, and emotional manipulation. My team would trace every financial transaction, document every lie, and prepare for a legal assault that would leave her with nothing but the clothes on her back. But the financial and legal destruction was only the beginning. Vanessa had built her entire identity around her online presence, her carefully curated image of perfection. I was going to systematically dismantle that image piece by piece until she became a cautionary tale instead of an inspiration. The first phase began immediately. While Vanessa continued posting her abandoned wife content and collecting sympathy followers, my cybersecurity team went to work tracing every digital footprint of her betrayal. What we found exceeded even my expectations. Vanessa hadn't just planned to leave me. She'd been systematically stealing from me for months. Cash transfers to accounts in her maiden name, forged signatures on withdrawal slips processed while I was unconscious from anesthesia, even attempts to access my business banking credentials using password recovery emails sent to her phone. My forensic accountant, Sarah Kim, laid it out in devastating detail. "She moved $400,000 from your joint accounts in the 6 hours you were in surgery. The bank has security footage of her at the ATM making maximum daily withdrawals on 3 different cards. She tried to wire transfer another $200,000 to an offshore account, but that got flagged by fraud protection systems." Meanwhile, Maya continued feeding me intelligence about Vanessa's true plans. The recordings she'd made were beyond damning. In one particularly revealing conversation, Vanessa laughed about how easy it had been to manipulate me. "He actually thinks I love him." God, Maya, the man is so pathetic. All those nights pretending to care about his back pain, rubbing his shoulders, playing nurse. I deserve an Oscar. But once he's out of surgery and all loopy on drugs, I'm gone. Clean break, maximum payout, and I get to play the victim on social media. It's actually genius. In another recording, she detailed her post-divorce plans. "I'm going to milk this for everything it's worth. Betrayed wife, abandoned during medical crisis. The sympathy content writes itself. I'll probably gain 100,000 followers just from the divorce announcement. Brands eat this stuff up." She'd even mocked my mother's engagement ring, which she'd apparently already had appraised. "That ugly old thing is worth 40 grand. I'm getting rid of it the second the papers are signed. Maybe I'll make a whole video about letting go of toxic memories when I sell it." By the time I was discharged from the hospital 6 weeks later, I had assembled a legal arsenal that would have made a prosecutor weep with joy. Bank records, security footage, recorded confessions, digital communications with divorce attorneys dated months before my surgery. Everything meticulously organized and verified by 3 different law firms. The court date was set for a Tuesday morning in October. Vanessa showed up looking like she was attending a fashion show rather than a legal proceeding. Designer dress, professional makeup, hair styled to perfection, she was clearly planning to turn even this into content opportunities. She barely acknowledged me as we sat on opposite sides of the courtroom, too busy posing for what I assumed were Instagram stories about her brave day in court. She had no idea what was coming. David stood up when the judge called the case, and I watched Vanessa's face shift from smug confidence to growing confusion as he began presenting our evidence. Your Honor, we're not here to contest a divorce. We're here to expose a systematic campaign of fraud, theft, and emotional manipulation orchestrated by the plaintiff against my client while he was undergoing major medical surgery. Exhibit A. Bank records showing $400,000 transferred from joint accounts during my surgery. Exhibit B. Security footage of Vanessa at ATMs using my cards while I was unconscious. Exhibit C. Audio recordings of Vanessa admitting to months of premeditated deception. Exhibit D. Text messages between Vanessa and her divorce attorney dated 4 months before my surgery. Exhibit E. Digital evidence of attempted wire fraud to offshore accounts. The judge's expression grew colder with each piece of evidence. When David played the audio recording of Vanessa calling me pathetic and laughing about her deception, I saw her face drain of color completely. "Mrs. Caldwell," the judge said, his voice sharp enough to cut glass, "would you like to explain to this court why you believe you're entitled to any settlement from a marriage you systematically defrauded?" Vanessa's lawyer, a young public defender who'd clearly expected a simple no-contest divorce, looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Vanessa herself seemed incapable of speech. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I'm ordering an immediate criminal investigation into allegations of fraud, forgery, and theft. Mrs. Caldwell, your assets are frozen pending resolution of these charges. You're also ordered to repay the stolen funds with interest and penalties." The divorce petition was dismissed. The criminal referral was filed. And I walked out of that courtroom knowing that Vanessa's real punishment was just beginning. The legal victory was satisfying, but watching Vanessa's carefully constructed world crumble was pure poetry. Within hours of the court transcript being filed as public record, my PR team released a carefully redacted version to select media outlets. The story exploded across social media. Instagram influencer exposed as fraud after abandoning husband during surgery. The hashtag #, Vanessa Caldwell exposed, trended for 3 days. Her followers turned on her with the vicious intensity that only the internet can provide. Comment sections that had once been filled with heart-eye emojis and supportive messages became wastelands of accusations and mockery. Every post she'd made about being abandoned was screenshotted and reposted with laughing emojis. Memes featuring her face with captions like, "When you think you're the victim but you're actually the villain," went viral. The brand partnerships evaporated overnight. Luxury fashion companies, beauty brands, lifestyle products, everyone who'd been eager to work with the inspirational survivor wanted nothing to do with the exposed fraud. Her management company dropped her via a tersely worded email that somehow found its way to gossip blogs within hours. Maya, ever the opportunist, started her own Exposing My Cousin video series, revealing even more damaging details about Vanessa's character. The videos racked up millions of views, turning Maya into a minor influencer herself, while further destroying Vanessa's reputation. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source: my mother's engagement ring. Vanessa had indeed pawned it immediately after the surgery, just as she'd bragged about in Maya's recordings. When this became public, the jeweler who'd bought it offered to return the ring as a goodwill gesture, generating even more positive press for my side while highlighting Vanessa's callousness. The financial destruction was equally thorough. The court-ordered asset freeze meant Vanessa couldn't access any of the money she'd stolen. Her luxury apartment lease was terminated when she couldn't make rent. The car payments she'd been making with my credit cards resulted in repossession. Within a month, she'd gone from influencer lifestyle to selling designer handbags on Facebook Marketplace just to afford groceries. The criminal charges moved forward with efficiency that surprised even David. Prosecutors love slam-dunk cases, and Vanessa's crimes were documented so thoroughly that her public defender advised her to take a plea deal. She received 2 years probation, community service, and a restitution order that would keep her financially ruined for the foreseeable future. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came 6 months later, on a cold February evening. I was driving through the industrial part of town when I spotted a familiar figure behind the bulletproof glass of a rundown gas station. Vanessa, wearing a stained uniform shirt, mechanically scanning lottery tickets and energy drinks for customers who barely looked at her. She'd gained weight. Her famous hair was pulled back in a greasy ponytail. The manicured nails that had once held champagne glasses at charity galas were now chipped and stained with newsprint from handling magazines. I pulled up to the pump directly in front of the window and made sure she could see me clearly as I filled my tank. The new Porsche, an upgrade from the one she'd thought she'd get half of, gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. When I walked inside to pay, she kept her eyes fixed on the register, but I could see her hands shaking slightly. The name tag on her uniform shirt read V. Martinez. She'd gone back to her maiden name, probably to avoid the continued internet harassment that followed her married name. "Evening," I said pleasantly, sliding my credit card across the counter. She processed the payment without a word, without looking up. Her face was hollow, aged beyond her years. The woman who'd once commanded rooms with her presence now seemed to fold in on herself, desperate to avoid any kind of attention. As I turned to leave, I paused at the door. "Oh, Vanessa?" She finally looked up, and I saw something that satisfied me more than all the legal victories and financial recoveries combined. Complete and utter defeat in her eyes. "I hope you're doing well," I said with genuine warmth. "Really, I hope you've learned from your mistakes." The lie came so easily, so convincingly, that for a moment I almost believed it myself. 6 months later, Caldwell Tech Solutions opened its new regional headquarters in a gleaming tower downtown. The grand opening was covered by business journals and local news stations. My photo appeared on magazine covers with headlines like, "Rising from Betrayal, How One CEO Turned Personal Destruction into Professional Triumph." I was profiled as a survivor, an inspiration, a man who'd overcome both physical and emotional trauma to build something even greater than before. The spine surgery that was supposed to be my lowest point became the foundation story of my greatest success. Late one evening, as I stood in my new corner office overlooking the city, my assistant brought me the latest social media monitoring report. Vanessa had finally returned to Instagram after months of silence. Her follower count had dropped from 800,000 to barely 12,000. Her most recent post, a generic sunset photo with some inspirational quote about new beginnings, had received exactly 7 likes. One of those likes was from Maya, who'd built her own following to over 300,000 by positioning herself as the whistleblower who'd exposed her cousin's fraud. Maya's bio now read, "Truth teller, fraud exposer. Sometimes blood isn't thicker than water." I closed the report and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was probably finishing her shift at the gas station, counting down the hours until she could go home to whatever cramped apartment she could afford on minimum wage. Tomorrow she'd wake up and do it all again, her dreams of influencer stardom and easy money buried under the weight of her own choices. The doctors had warned me that recovery from spinal surgery would be long and difficult, that I might never be the same person I was before. They were right, but not in the way they'd expected. I wasn't the same trusting, generous man who'd believed his wife's promises and ignored red flags. I was harder now, more calculating, less prone to sentiment. The betrayal had burned away every trace of naivety, leaving behind something sharper and more dangerous. Vanessa thought she was destroying me when she left those divorce papers on my hospital bed. Instead, she'd created the architect of her own destruction. And unlike her crime, my revenge would last forever, a permanent reminder to anyone who thought they could take advantage of Ethan Caldwell's trust. The billboard advertising our new headquarters was visible from the gas station where she worked. Every night, as she counted the register and locked up the shop, she could look up and see my face smiling down at the city I now owned a piece of. The tagline on that billboard, suggested by my marketing team, read, "Built from rock bottom, fueled by betrayal, stronger than ever." I couldn't have written it better myself. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. The iPad sits where she left it. Kitchen counter, charging cable snaked across granite like a lifeline. I reach for it to check tomorrow's weather. Simple as that. The notification bubble appears before I can swipe away. Marcus Chen, blue checkmark, the kind that matters in her world. The photo loads without my permission. Hotel bathroom mirror. Her face flushed, lips parted, wearing nothing but his hands around her waist. His face beside hers, chin stubbled, grinning like he owns something precious. I set the iPad down. My hands don't shake. My breath doesn't catch. Something else happens instead. Something colder, sharper. A clarity I haven't felt in years. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of standing by her through 2 miscarriages that shattered her. 8 years of working overtime so she could chase her spoken word dreams. 8 years of sitting in coffee shops and community centers, watching her pour her heart onto stages while I clapped from folding chairs in the back. I remember the night she got her first real gig, the Arts Council showcase downtown, how she cried against my shoulder afterward, mascara streaking my shirt. "I couldn't have done this without you," she whispered. "You're my foundation." I believed her then. The iPad chirps again. Another message from Marcus. "Can't wait for next weekend." Same sweet? I scroll up through their conversation. Months of messages. Hotels I've never heard of. Dates when she told me she was visiting her sister in Portland. Times when I was home alone, microwaving leftover Chinese while she was... I stop scrolling. I've seen enough. She won't be home for hours. Tuesday night writing group, she called it this morning, kissing my cheek before grabbing her leather messenger bag. "Don't wait up, babe. We're workshopping until late." I wonder what kind of work they're shopping now. I walk through our house, my house really, since I pay the mortgage, and step onto the back deck. The October air cuts through my t-shirt, but I don't go back for a jacket. I sit on the steps, bare feet against cold wood, and stare at the fence line where our yard ends. The neighbors' windows glow yellow in the dusk. Normal people living normal lives, probably. No one taking mirror selfies in hotel rooms. No one documenting their betrayals for later viewing. The anger I expected doesn't come. Neither does the hurt. Instead, there's something surgical in my chest. Clean, focused, precise. I won't yell when she gets home tonight. Won't throw the iPad at her feet. Won't give her the satisfaction of watching me break. She chose this path. She chose him. She chose to capture it in pixels and store it in the cloud like a trophy. But she doesn't get to choose what happens next. A dog barks somewhere down the street. A car door slams. Normal Tuesday night sounds in our suburban bubble. I sit in the gathering dark, watching my breath fog in the cooling air. She'll come home around 11, I figure. Slip into bed beside me, smelling like wine and lies. She'll whisper something about being tired, about the workshop running long. Maybe she'll even kiss my forehead like she used to. I'll pretend to be asleep. Let her settle into the false comfort of thinking she's fooled me again. And tomorrow, I'll start dismantling the life she thinks she's so cleverly living behind my back. I sit there until my feet go numb, already calculating. Before she became the woman who takes hotel selfies with influencers, Sarah was the girl who couldn't order pizza without rehearsing the conversation twice. Anxiety lived under her skin like a second skeleton. She'd pace our first apartment, practicing words for situations that might never happen. I was 28 when we met. Blue-collar background, community college degree in network administration. Worked my way up from help desk to systems architect through sheer stubborn competence. Nothing flashy, but steady, reliable. The kind of man who shows up when he says he will. She was performing at Moonbeams, a poetry bar downtown that smelled like clove cigarettes and unfulfilled dreams. Hole-in-the-wall place with mismatched furniture and a mic that cut out every third word. Her piece was about drowning in shallow water, how you can be surrounded by people and still feel like you're suffocating. Her voice trembled on every line. Afterward, she sat alone at the bar, picking at a grilled cheese she couldn't afford. I bought her a beer. She talked for 4 hours straight, words spilling out like water through a cracked dam. About her dreams of making it as a performance artist, her fears of never mattering to anyone, how she wanted to build something beautiful with her life but didn't know where to start. I fell for her then. Not just her beauty, though she was beautiful, all wild auburn curls and nervous energy, but for her hunger. The way she looked at me like I might have answers to questions she'd been asking her whole life. She moved in after 2 months. I gave her the walk-in closet, the side of the bed by the window. She covered my beige walls with poetry drafts and photos from open mics, turned my practical space into something that breathed. The first miscarriage happened 10 months later. She bled for days, curled on our second-hand couch while I held her and promised things would be different next time. The second one broke something deeper. She stopped writing for months, stopped talking. I'd come home to find her staring at the wall, lost in grief I couldn't touch. But I stayed, made her tea with honey, rubbed her back during crying fits that lasted hours, drove her to therapy appointments she didn't want to attend, held her hand through doctor visits that confirmed what we both suspected. Her body wasn't built for carrying children. "You could leave," she whispered one night, face pressed against my chest. "Find someone who can give you a family." "I want you," I said. "Just you." She started writing again slowly. Little pieces about loss, about learning to live with empty spaces inside you. I helped her research performance opportunities, drove her to readings across the city, watched her rebuild herself word by word, stage by stage. When she landed her first paid gig, a corporate diversity event that paid $400, she hyperventilated in our kitchen. "This is it," she said, gripping my hand so tight her nails left marks. "This is how it starts. Everything changes now." I believed her. For years, I believed that what we had was partnership, that my steadiness balanced her chaos, that my love was the foundation she built her art on. I thought I was helping her become the person she was meant to be. Now I understand better. I wasn't her partner. I was her safety net, the reliable constant she could fall back on while she reached for something shinier. She didn't keep pieces of herself for me. She kept me for when the pieces fell apart. I gave her 8 years of my life, 8 years of quiet devotion, of showing up, of believing in her dreams even when she didn't believe in them herself. I thought I was investing in our future. Turns out I was just funding her betrayal. Marcus Chen, 2.3 million followers across platforms, verified on everything that matters, sells online courses about authentic connection and ethical intimacy for $399 a pop. His bio calls him a vulnerability strategist and conscious relationship architect. The irony burns like acid in my throat. She's screwing a man who makes money teaching people how to be honest. I dig deeper into her cloud storage. The password is still our anniversary date, September 14th. At least she's consistent in her carelessness. What I find makes my stomach turn to stone. Hotel receipts dating back 6 months. The Meridian downtown, the Westin by the airport, the boutique place on Morrison Street that charges $400 a night. Always the same pattern, Friday check-in, Saturday checkout. always when she told me she was visiting her sister. Her sister lives in a studio apartment and works at Target. But I never questioned the luxury hotels Sarah described, the spa treatments, the expensive dinners. I thought her sister was treating her well. The message threads are worse than the receipts. Screenshots of our conversations where she mocks me to him. He's making dinner again. Thinks we're having a romantic night in. Does he suspect anything? He asks. Please. He still thinks I cry during intimacy because it's so meaningful. I'm just bored. What's he like in bed? He asks. Imagine missionary position had a baby with watching paint dry. I fake every single thing, every sound, every reaction. He has no idea. I screenshot everything, forward it to my personal email, cover my tracks. The audio files live in a folder labeled Writing Inspiration. 47 recordings. Some are her practicing new material, working through difficult passages. But others, I close my laptop before I can listen. Some things can't be unheard, but I save them all anyway. Marcus Chen, I learned from his website, specializes in helping couples redesign intimacy for the digital age. His testimonials feature before and after photos of supposedly transformed relationships. Beautiful people holding hands, gazing into each other's eyes with manufactured bliss. His upcoming book is titled The Authenticity Imperative: Living Your Truth in an Age of Deception. The preview chapter talks about the courage required to be genuinely yourself, no matter what others think. I read his blog posts about emotional honesty, his YouTube videos about building trust, his Instagram captions about the sacred nature of committed relationships. This man makes a living selling what he destroys. In her cloud, I find photos of our house she's shared with him. Pictures of me sleeping, mouth open, hair sticking up. The caption reads, "This is what settling looks like." Screenshots of my text messages to her, shared for his amusement. The one where I said I missed her while she was supposedly in Portland. The one where I worried about her driving in the rain. The one where I told her I loved her before a big presentation. She's turned my love into entertainment for their pillow talk. I think about the last 8 years. Every morning I brought her coffee in bed. Every night I listened to her workshop new material, offering feedback she claimed to value. Every small kindness I thought was building something precious between us. She was collecting material, turning my devotion into comedy for her real life. This isn't heartbreak anymore. This is data analysis. And I've got everything I need. Marcus has a keynote scheduled next month. Digital Intimacy in the Age of Connection at the Pacific Northwest Women's Empowerment Summit. 5,000 attendees. Live streamed to another 10,000. Sarah will be there. She mentioned it last week, how honored she felt to be invited as Marcus's artistic collaborator. How this could be her big break. Her big break. I bookmark his speaking schedule. Start taking notes. Time to see how much authenticity Marcus and Sarah can handle. The summit. 3 days of workshops, panels, and keynotes at the Portland Convention Center. Sarah's been preparing for months, treating it like her personal coronation. Her breakthrough moment, she calls it. The night she steps onto a stage big enough for her dreams. She's scheduled to perform during the opening ceremony. 20 minutes of original material about reclaiming feminine power through vulnerable expression. Material she's been workshopping in our living room every night for weeks. Marcus thinks I should record the whole thing, she says over breakfast, scrolling through her phone. Upload it to my YouTube channel. This could change everything for me, Marcus thinks. The phrase that's infected every conversation we've had for months. I make the call that afternoon. Pacific Northwest Women's Empowerment Summit, Donor Relations. I'm a potential major sponsor, I explain. Technology executive interested in supporting feminist causes. Would it be possible to discuss partnership opportunities? Rebecca, the development coordinator, sounds like she's about to propose marriage through the phone. Major tech sponsorship? She can arrange a facilities tour, meet with the production team, see exactly how their magic happens. We're particularly proud of our AV setup, she gushes. State-of-the-art recording capabilities. We archive everything for participants who can't attend in person. Perfect. I take a personal day from work, drive to Portland, check into a hotel across from the convention center. Meet Rebecca at the main entrance, wearing my best suit and carrying a briefcase full of financial projections I'll never use. The tour takes 2 hours. 5,000 seats facing a massive stage with professional lighting rigs that cost more than my car. The control booth sits elevated at the back, glass-walled, filled with mixing boards and recording equipment that captures every whisper. Danny, the lead audio engineer, is a kid barely out of college with arms covered in band tattoos and the enthusiasm of someone who still loves his job. He walks me through the system: 32-channel digital mixer, wireless mic receivers, recording setup that captures everything in broadcast quality. We record automatically, he explains. Archive everything for the speakers. Most don't know that. They think they need to bring their own crew. Fascinating, I say. So you're capturing their entire performance? Everything. Sound checks, backstage chatter, the works, all digital, all stored in our server farm. I mention my background in network security. We talk shop for 30 minutes. By the end, Danny's treating me like his new best friend. Want to see the wireless patch bay? He asks. I could show you how we integrate external audio sources into the main system. I tell him I'd love that. An hour later, I understand their entire infrastructure. Frequency allocations, mixing protocols, archive systems, input hierarchies, the works. If someone wanted to add a custom intro for a performer, I ask casually, how would that work? Easy. We do it all the time. Speaker sends us the file, tells us when to cue it, makes for nice dramatic effect. I thank Danny for his expertise. Promise Rebecca I'll be in touch about sponsorship opportunities. Drive back to Seattle with my head full of technical specifications and a plan crystallizing like ice water in my veins. That evening, Sarah practices her set one more time. 20 minutes of material about authenticity and courage. About being true to yourself despite what others think. About the strength required to live honestly in a world that rewards deception. I sit in our living room watching her perform and open audio editing software on my laptop. Her own words, her own voice, her own lies about me, about us, about what she really thinks when the lights go down and the audience goes home. No fabrication required, no creative editing, just truth. Finally getting its moment on stage. She wants to talk about authentic expression? Perfect. I'll give her the most authentic moment of her life. Summit morning arrives wrapped in November rain. Sarah spends 4 hours getting ready. Professional makeup artist, hairstylist who specializes in camera-ready looks, outfit carefully selected to project powerful yet approachable energy. Her red scarf, the signature piece she wears to every important performance, drapes perfectly around her shoulders. She practiced that casual loop in front of our bedroom mirror until it looked effortless. How do I look? She asks, spinning in our entryway. Like you're about to get everything you deserve, I say. She kisses my cheek, leaving a lipstick mark I don't wipe away. I'll probably be late tonight. Marcus is hosting a reception afterward. Networking opportunity I can't miss. Of course he is, I say. I'm sure you'll make the most of it. She grabs her garment bag and performance notes, checks her phone one final time. Wish me luck? Break a leg, I tell her. Really? Give them everything you've got. She drives away in the rental car, paid for with my credit card, toward what she thinks will be her greatest triumph. I watch her taillights disappear into Portland traffic. I wait exactly 30 minutes. Then I drive to the convention center. The parking garage is packed. Tour buses dropping off attendees in designer clothes. Local news vans setting up by the main entrance. Sarah's promotional photo smiles from banners flanking the doors. Her biggest platform finally here. I don't go inside. Instead, I park across the street at a coffee shop with good Wi-Fi and a clear sightline to the convention center's front entrance. Order black coffee and a muffin I won't eat. Open my laptop. The summit streams their major events live. 5,000 women in the audience, another 8,000 watching online. Sarah's about to have the biggest platform of her career. At 11:45, I text Danny from a burner phone. Ready when you are. At noon, the opening ceremony begins. Rebecca takes the stage to welcome everyone, introduce the day's performers. 5 speakers sharing the bill, but Sarah's the featured artist, the one Marcus personally recommended. At 12:30, Marcus himself appears for his keynote introduction. 20 minutes about the power of authentic vulnerability, the courage required to live truthfully. The audience hangs on every word. He's polished, charismatic, absolutely magnetic. And now, he says, his voice warm with apparent affection, I want to introduce someone who embodies everything we've discussed today. A woman who has turned her pain into art, her struggles into strength. Please welcome Sarah Mitchell. The applause washes over her like warm water as she takes the stage. She stands at the microphone, red scarf catching the stage lights, and smiles at her audience. Front section, literary community colleagues, writing workshop friends. Middle, Marcus's followers who came specifically to see his protege perform. Scattered throughout, industry professionals who could change her career trajectory. She begins her set. 20 minutes of carefully crafted vulnerability. Stories about overcoming fear, finding her voice, learning to live authentically despite societal pressure. The audience is with her completely. 15 minutes in, she transitions to her closing piece, the one about marriage, about how love means accepting someone completely, flaws and all, about the courage it takes to commit to another person's growth. Real love, she says into the microphone, her voice carrying to the back rows, isn't about perfection. It's about showing up. It's about choosing someone every single day, even when... The microphone crackles. Technical glitch, the audience assumes. Someone coughs. Then her voice fills the auditorium. Not from the stage, from the sound system. A recording, crystal clear. I fake every single thing, every sound, every reaction. He has no idea. Her face goes white. She steps back from the microphone like it might explode. The recording continues. Her voice, laughing. Marcus's voice responding. Their hotel room conversations playing for 5,000 people and a live stream. Does he suspect anything? He asks. Please, he still thinks I cry during intimacy because it's so meaningful, S.E. answers. Gasps ripple through the auditorium. Someone's phone camera flash goes off. Then another. Then dozens. Sarah's literary friends sit frozen in the front section. The Marcus followers look confused, then horrified. Industry professionals start heading for the exits. What's he like in bed? He asks. Imagine missionary position had a baby with watching paint dry. Nervous laughter from somewhere in the middle section. Someone else shushes them angrily. Sarah tries to speak into the microphone, but her voice comes out as a broken whisper that the sound system amplifies. This isn't... I can explain. The recording plays for 6 more minutes. Every cruel word, every mocking laugh, every detail of their affair laid bare for everyone who ever believed her message about authentic living. When it finally stops, the silence is absolute. Sarah stands alone on stage, red scarf hanging loose around her shoulders, 5,000 pairs of eyes fixed on her like she's something they've never seen before. She tries again to speak. Someone hacked, this is out of context. But it isn't out of context. It's exactly what it sounds like. Her own words, unedited, finally reaching the audience she never intended them for. People in the back rows start pulling out phones, filming her breakdown in real time. The live stream chat explodes with comments too fast to read. Marcus has disappeared from the wings. Sarah gathers her scarf and runs off stage, heels clicking against the floor like gunshots in the silence. I close my laptop, finish my coffee, and drive home through the rain. Sarah tries calling me 23 times that first night. I let every call go to voicemail, delete them without listening. She comes home at 3 a.m., makeup streaked down her cheeks, red scarf crumpled in her fist. I pretend to be asleep when she crawls into bed beside me, her body shaking with what might be tears or rage. "I know you're awake," she whispers. I don't respond. "We need to talk about what happened today." Silence. "Someone hacked my phone, played old recordings, out of context. You have to believe me." I roll over, back to her, and listen to her breathing grow ragged in the dark. She tries reaching me through mutual friends first. Jennifer calls, then Rachel, then David from her writing group. They all want to mediate, to help us work through this difficult time. They speak in the careful tones people use around explosives. I tell them all the same thing. Ask Sarah to explain. I'm sure she has a story ready. Marcus drops her within 48 hours. Deletes every photo, every mention, every trace of their artistic collaboration from his social media. Issues a statement about maintaining professional boundaries and focusing on healing work. His follower count actually increases. Sarah's day job, content coordinator for a nonprofit, places her on administrative leave pending review. The video clips from Portland spread faster than she can delete them. Someone edited a highlight reel. Performer gets exposed live at Women's Summit. 4.2 million views in 6 days. She becomes a cautionary tale, a meme. The woman who preached authenticity while living a lie. Her writing group quietly distances itself. Sudden schedule conflicts, unreturned emails, invitations that mysteriously get lost. Her social media followers evaporate like steam. Sponsors for her YouTube channel disappear overnight. I move out on a Thursday while she's at therapy. Pack only what I need, clothes, laptop, a few books that matter to me. Leave everything else. The furniture we bought together, the photos of our life, the shared history I no longer want to carry. My new apartment is smaller, quieter. 1 bedroom in a complex across town where no one knows my story. I buy a couch from Facebook Marketplace, a bed from IKEA. Nothing matches, but it's mine. Sarah tries one last desperate contact 6 months later. Shows up at my office building during lunch, waiting by my car in the parking garage. "I made a mistake," she says when she sees me. "A terrible mistake. But we can fix this. 8 years has to count for something." She looks smaller than I remember, thinner. Her hair is shorter now, controlled instead of wild, practical. "I chose you," she continues, her voice breaking. "In the end, I chose you." I unlock my car door. Don't look at her. "No, you didn't. You chose yourself. You always chose yourself." "Please," she says as I get in. "Don't throw away 8 years over one mistake." "One mistake?" I start the engine. "You documented every lie, saved every conversation, turned my love into entertainment for your affair. That's not one mistake. That's who you are." I drive away without looking back. A year later, I check her social media one final time. Her accounts are gone, deleted or deactivated, impossible to tell which. Her website displays a single line. Content no longer available. The woman who built her identity on words has finally found silence. I lean back in my desk chair, close my laptop, and look around my quiet apartment. No photos on the walls, no poetry drafts taped to the refrigerator, no trace of the life I thought I wanted. It's peaceful here, clean, honest. She wanted a stage big enough for her dreams. I gave her the spotlight she craved, the audience she'd always been performing for, and she burned in it. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, So click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm the kind of guy who doesn't say much but builds a solid life in quiet ways. At 38, I've learned that actions matter more than words, that consistency trumps grand gestures, and that the best relationships, like the best engineering projects, are built on foundations you can trust completely. Claire and I met at my buddy Marcus's birthday weekend at his lake house. I was nursing a beer on the dock, watching the sunset paint the water gold, when she appeared beside me with that laugh that could light up a room. She had this way of making conversation feel effortless, like we'd known each other for years instead of minutes. While everyone else was getting loud around the fire pit, we talked about everything and nothing. Her work as a graphic designer, my latest project at the engineering firm, the way the stars looked different away from the city. "You're not much of a party person, are you?" she asked, settling into the chair beside mine. "Depends on the party," I said. "This is perfect." And it was. She got that immediately. Where other women had tried to drag me into crowds or complained about my quiet nature, Claire seemed to appreciate the space between words, the comfort of just being present with someone without needing to fill every silence. We fell hard and fast after that weekend. She'd drive over to my apartment after work, and we'd cook dinner together, her chattering about difficult clients while I listened and stirred pasta sauce. She made everything feel warmer somehow. My sterile bachelor pad transformed when she started leaving books on my coffee table, her favorite tea in my cupboard, her laugh echoing off walls that had been too quiet for too long. The proposal came 2 years later, on another dock at another lake during another sunset. I'd had the ring for months, waiting for the right moment, but when she looked at me with that same expression she'd worn that first night, like I was exactly what she'd been looking for without knowing it, the words just came naturally. "Marry me," I said, and she said yes before I even got the ring out of my pocket. Our wedding was small, perfect. Claire in a simple dress that made her look like she was glowing from the inside out. Me in the suit my father had worn to his own wedding 40 years earlier. We wrote our own vows, standing under an arch her best friend had decorated with flowers from her garden. I promised to be her steady ground, her safe harbor, the person she could always count on. She promised to be my light, my laughter, the voice that would call me home. The early years of marriage felt like proof that I'd gotten the most important equation of my life exactly right. Lazy Sunday mornings with coffee and newspapers spread across our bed, her feet tucked under my legs while she worked on freelance projects, and I sketched out solutions to problems from the office. Road trips where we'd compile playlists together, her pop songs mixed with my classic rock, arguing good-naturedly about whether the Beatles were better than the Stones while miles of highway disappeared beneath us. We bought the house on Maple Street because Claire fell in love with the kitchen windows that looked out onto the backyard where she imagined planting a garden. I fell in love with the garage that could fit my workbench and her car, with the solid bones of a place built to last. We spent weekends at Home Depot, picking out paint colors and cabinet hardware, her eyes bright with plans for our future. "We're good at this," she said one evening, both of us paint-splattered and exhausted after finishing the living room. She was curled against my side on our plastic-covered couch, surveying our work with satisfaction. "We are," I agreed, kissing the top of her head. "We build good things together." And we did. 5 years of marriage that felt like the most natural thing in the world. Dinner parties where Claire's warmth drew people in and my steady presence made them feel comfortable staying. Holidays with both our families, Claire mediating between my reserved parents and her dramatic ones with the grace of a diplomat. Quiet evenings where she'd read on the couch with her feet in my lap while I worked on hobby projects at the coffee table. I trusted it completely, trusted her completely, because that's how I approach everything in life. When I commit to something, whether it's a career or a construction project or a marriage, I give it everything I have. I believed Claire was the same way. I believed we'd built something that could weather any storm. something with the structural integrity to last a lifetime. The foundation felt solid. The framework seemed sound. All the load-bearing elements were exactly where they should be. I'd checked and double-checked every joint, every connection, every point of potential failure. I never imagined that the most dangerous flaw would be something I couldn't engineer away, something that had been hidden in the blueprints from the very beginning. The simple, devastating possibility that the person I'd built everything with might decide, one ordinary Tuesday evening, that she wanted to tear it all down and start over with someone else. I came home from work that Tuesday expecting nothing more complicated than leftover lasagna and maybe catching the game on TV. The project at work had run long, structural calculations for a new bridge downtown that kept refusing to balance properly, and my brain was still half lost in load distributions and stress analyses when I walked through the front door. Claire was in the kitchen, but something felt off immediately. She wasn't humming like she usually did while cooking, wasn't dancing slightly to whatever playlist she had going. Instead, she stood with her back to me, shoulders rigid, staring out the window at the garden she'd never quite gotten around to planting. "Hey," I said, dropping my keys on the counter. "Good day?" She turned around, and I saw it in her face. That look people get when they're about to deliver bad news. In my line of work, I'd seen it plenty of times right before clients told me the budget had been cut, or the timeline moved up, or the whole project was being scrapped. But this was Claire, and we were in our kitchen, and there was no reason for that expression to be aimed at me. "We need to talk," she said, and my stomach dropped straight through the floor. In 7 years together, Claire had never used those words. We talked constantly, about everything, but she'd never made it sound like a formal proceeding. She gestured toward the living room, and I followed her, my mind already running through possibilities like checking calculations. Money problems, family drama, health issues. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, not close like we usually did, not with her feet tucked under my legs or my arm around her shoulders. She perched on the edge of the cushions like she might need to run, her hands twisted together in her lap. "I've been thinking a lot lately," she began, and I waited for the rest, but she seemed stuck on those words. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, and she kept looking at me and then away, like she couldn't quite face whatever she was about to say. "Thinking about what?" I asked, though some part of me already knew I didn't want the answer. "About us. About our marriage." She took a shaky breath. "Ethan, I love you. I need you to know that before I say anything else. But I feel like we're broken somehow. Like we've gotten so comfortable that we've forgotten how to really see each other." The words hit me like a structural failure under load. Sudden, catastrophic, impossible to fix once it started. But I kept my voice level, my face calm. "What do you mean, broken?" "We're like roommates," she said, gaining momentum now that she'd started. "We have our routines, our comfortable patterns, but when was the last time you really looked at me? When was the last time we talked about anything that mattered? Anything beyond what we're having for dinner or whether we need to call the plumber?" I thought about that morning, how she'd kissed my cheek while I drank coffee and read the news, how natural and right it had felt. "I thought we were happy," I said. "So did I for a long time. But lately—" She was crying now, tears sliding down her cheeks while she struggled to find words. "I keep wondering if this is all there is. If I'm going to spend the rest of my life in this same routine, with this same comfortable distance between us, never feeling that spark again, never feeling truly seen or desired or passionate about anything." "Are you having an affair?" The question came out harder than I intended, cutting through her rambling explanation. "No," she said quickly. "No, I haven't cheated. I would never do that to you, to us. But—" She looked up at me with something that might have been hope or might have been desperation. "I've been thinking that maybe we should try being apart for a while. Maybe we need some space to figure out if what we have is worth fighting for, or if we're just staying together because it's easier than admitting we've grown apart. The words kept coming after that, but I stopped hearing them clearly. Something about counseling, about taking time to explore what she might be missing, about being too young to settle for comfortable but passionless. She talked about reconnecting, about rediscovering herself as an individual, about the possibility of coming back together stronger. But all I heard was that my wife wanted to explore other options, that she thought what we'd built together wasn't enough, that she wanted to shop around and see if she could do better. "I don't want to lose you," she was saying when I tuned back in. "But I feel like I'm losing myself, and I don't know how to fix that without some space to breathe and think and—" "Stop," I said quietly, and she did, looking at me with those wide, hopeful eyes like I might have a solution that would make this easier for both of us. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the yard where she'd imagined planting flowers but never quite gotten around to it. My mind felt strangely clear. "You want space?" I said without turning around. "Yes, but—" she stammered. "You want to explore other options?" I said. "Not other people necessarily, just other possibilities, other ways of being." I turned back to face her. She was watching me with growing uncertainty, like she was starting to realize this conversation wasn't going the way she'd expected. "You have 1 hour," I said. "What?" she asked. "Pack your things, whatever you need for the next few weeks. You can come back for the rest later." My voice sounded perfectly calm to my own ears, professionally detached. "I'll drive you to your parents' house." "Ethan, no, that's not what I meant," she stammered. "It's exactly what you meant." I checked my watch. 58 minutes now." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "I wanted to talk about this. I wanted us to work through it together, maybe try counseling first." "Claire." I looked at her directly, and she must have seen something in my expression that made her stop talking. "You just told me you want to explore whether our marriage is worth keeping. You don't ask someone to wait around while you shop for alternatives. Pack your things." "You're being ridiculous. This is exactly the kind of communication problem I'm talking about. You're not even trying to understand." "I understand perfectly." I sat back down, but not close to her. "You're not happy. You think something better might be out there. You want to find out without losing your safety net. And you expected me to sit here and negotiate with you about it." "Yes, I expected you to care enough to fight for us," she said. "I don't fight for people who are already halfway out the door." I stood up again. 55 minutes. The panic in her eyes was real, and part of me wanted to comfort her, to take back the words and pretend this conversation had never happened. But a larger part of me, the part that had spent 20 years learning that structural integrity was everything, knew that some cracks couldn't be repaired. Some foundations, once damaged, would never be truly solid again. She packed in 37 minutes, moving through the house like she was in shock, throwing clothes and toiletries into 2 suitcases while I waited by the front door. She kept trying to start conversations, explanations, apologies, attempts to reframe what she'd said, but I didn't respond. There was nothing left to discuss. The drive to her parents' house was silent except for her crying. I kept my hands steady on the wheel, my eyes on the road, my mind carefully blank. When I pulled into their driveway, she turned to me one last time. "This isn't what I wanted," she whispered. "It's exactly what you wanted," I said. "You just thought it would cost less." I helped her carry her bags to the door, waited until her mother answered and pulled her inside with concerned questions, then drove home to our empty house and began the methodical process of moving forward without her. 3 weeks later, my phone buzzed with another text from Claire. I glanced at it while reviewing blueprints at my desk, then set the phone aside without reading the full message. I'd caught enough to know it was another variation on the same theme: regret, explanation, a plea for conversation. The divorce papers had been filed 2 days after I dropped her at her parents' house. My lawyer, Jim Patterson, had handled my real estate transactions, and knew me well enough not to ask too many questions when I called him that Wednesday morning. "You sure about this, Ethan?" he'd asked. "No kids, minimal assets to divide, clean break, but once we file, it gets complicated to undo." "File it," I'd said, and he had. Since then, Claire had launched what could only be described as a campaign. Texts at all hours, voicemails that started apologetic and grew increasingly desperate, long emails explaining what she'd really meant, how I'd misunderstood, how she'd just been going through a phase and never intended for us to actually separate. She'd apparently told her parents and friends some version of events that made me look like the unreasonable one, because I'd fielded calls from her mother and sister, and at least 3 mutual friends asking if we could work things out. I'd been polite but clear with all of them. Claire had asked for space to explore other options, and I'd given her exactly what she requested. If she was unhappy with the arrangement, that was between her and her own choices. The most awkward conversation had been with Marcus, whose birthday party had introduced us in the first place. He'd shown up at my apartment on a Saturday morning with coffee and the kind of concerned expression usually reserved for interventions. "Claire called Sarah crying," he said, settling into my kitchen chair like he planned to stay a while. "Says you won't return her calls, won't consider counseling, just served her with papers like she was some stranger." "She's not a stranger," I said, pouring my own coffee. "She's the woman who told me our marriage wasn't enough for her and she needed to explore other possibilities." "That's not how she tells it." "I'm sure it's not." I leaned against the counter, studying my oldest friend. "Marcus, what would you do if Sarah came home one day and said she wasn't sure your marriage was worth keeping, wanted some space to figure out if she could do better?" He was quiet for a long minute. "I'd probably lose my shit completely." I didn't lose my shit. I listened to what she said and responded accordingly. I sipped my coffee, found it bitter but drank it anyway. She wanted to explore other options. I'm letting her explore. She's miserable, man. Whatever she thought she wanted, she doesn't want it now. Then she's learning something valuable about herself. Marcus left after an hour, shaking his head like I was making a mistake he couldn't quite identify. But I saw understanding in his eyes, too. The recognition that what Claire had asked for wasn't really negotiable. You can't unring that bell. You can't ask your spouse to wait patiently while you figure out whether they're good enough to keep. The social fallout was manageable but persistent. Dinner invitations that had included both of us suddenly became awkward. Friends who didn't know whose side to take. The assumption that I must be devastated, that I was putting on a brave front while secretly hoping for reconciliation. The truth was simpler and more complicated than that. I wasn't secretly devastated. I was methodically rebuilding, the same way I'd approach any other major structural project. Step 1, assess the damage. Step 2, salvage whatever could be saved. Step 3, clear the foundation and start fresh. The house felt different without Claire's presence, but not empty. Quieter, yes, but not lonely. I established new routines, claimed spaces that had been hers, rearranged furniture to suit my preferences instead of our compromises. The kitchen table where we'd shared thousands of meals became my workspace for evening projects. The bedroom we'd shared became simply my bedroom, the bed made according to my standards, the closet reorganized to accommodate only my clothes. I was eating dinner at that table, take-out Thai food and engineering journals, when I saw her through the front window. Claire was sitting in her car across the street, just sitting there in the growing dusk, staring at the house. I watched her for 10 minutes, neither of us moving, then got up and closed the blinds. The next morning, there were flowers on my front porch, white roses with a card in her handwriting. "I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Please call me. I love you." I put the flowers in the trash can without bringing them inside. 2 days later, I was coming out of the grocery store when I saw her again, this time walking across the parking lot with someone I didn't recognize. A tall guy with carefully styled hair and expensive-looking clothes. The kind of man who probably used more hair products than most women. They were laughing about something, her head thrown back in that way I remembered, her hand briefly touching his arm. I finished loading my groceries, drove home, and realized I felt nothing stronger than mild curiosity. She was doing exactly what she'd said she wanted to do, exploring other options. The fact that she was apparently doing it while simultaneously begging me to take her back only confirmed that I'd made the right choice. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in October, exactly 6 months after that conversation in our living room. Jim called me at work to let me know the judge had signed the papers, that it was officially over. Claire hadn't contested anything. The house, the savings account, the division of assets. She'd signed everything her lawyer put in front of her like she was still hoping cooperation might earn her a second chance. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion and toasted the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Not in celebration, not in bitterness, but in recognition of a task completed efficiently and thoroughly. I was free to build something new, and this time I'd be more careful about checking the foundation. The first year after the divorce, I learned the difference between being alone and being lonely. Alone was coming home to a quiet house and choosing how to spend my evening without negotiating or compromising. Alone was discovering I actually enjoyed cooking when I only had to please myself, that I could spend entire weekends working on projects without interruption, that silence could be peaceful rather than awkward. Lonely was something I'd expected but rarely felt. Maybe because I'd chosen this solitude rather than having it forced on me. Maybe because I'd learned to see Claire's absence not as something missing, but as space for something better to grow. About 10 months after the papers were signed, I started dating again, not actively seeking anyone, but open to possibilities when they presented themselves. I met Lisa at a professional conference, an architect who'd consulted on one of my projects. She was smart, independent, knew what she wanted, and seemed to appreciate the same qualities in me. We started with coffee meetings that turned into dinner dates, taking things slowly but steadily. I ran into Claire at the coffee shop on 5th Street about 14 months after the divorce was final. She was sitting alone at a corner table, looking tired in a way that makeup couldn't quite hide. When she saw me in line, her face went through several expressions before settling on something that might have been hope. "Ethan," she said as I passed her table with my order. "Claire." I paused, studying her face. She looked older somehow, or maybe just worn down. "How are you?" She gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Can you sit for a minute?" "Please." I had nowhere pressing to be, so I sat. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she needed the warmth, even though it was a mild spring day. "I heard you're seeing someone," she said after a moment. Word traveled fast in our circle. Lisa and I had been together for 4 months now, taking things slowly but steadily. She understood about foundations, about building things that last, about the difference between settling and choosing wisely. "I am," I said simply. Claire nodded like she'd been expecting that answer. "Is it serious?" "Could be." I watched her face carefully. "Why?" She looked down at her coffee, then back at me. "I miss you. I miss us. I know I screwed everything up. I know you probably hate me. But I had to try one more time. What I did, what I said that night, it wasn't really about you or about us. I was just, I don't know. Scared of getting older, scared of settling, scared of missing out on something. But I was wrong about all of it. What do you want from me, Claire? I want to know if there's any chance, any possibility that we could try again. I've had over a year to figure out what I really want, and it's you. It was always you." I sipped my coffee, considered her words, felt the familiar absence of the anger or hurt she probably expected to find. "How did the exploring go?" I asked. Her cheeks flushed. It was a mistake, all of it. I thought I wanted excitement, passion, the kind of romance you see in movies. But that's not real life, is it? Real life is what we had. Trust, stability, someone who shows up every day. And you figured that out by dating other people. Yes. She met my eyes directly. I had to lose it to understand what it was worth. I nodded slowly. The thing is, Claire, I didn't have to lose it to know what it was worth. I knew exactly what we had, and I was committed to keeping it. You're the one who decided it wasn't enough. I know. I was an idiot. You weren't an idiot. You were honest about what you wanted, and I gave you exactly that. I finished my coffee, set the cup down. You wanted to explore other options, so I freed you up to explore. You wanted space to figure things out, so I gave you all the space you could possibly need. You wanted to know if you could do better than what we had, and now you do. And I can't, she said quietly. I can't do better than what we had. Maybe not, but I can. The words hung between us for a moment. She looked like I'd slapped her, and I realized she'd come here expecting a different conversation entirely. She'd expected me to be wounded, waiting, grateful for her return. What does that mean? She asked. It means I've learned some things this past year, too. I've learned that I deserve someone who doesn't need to shop around to figure out that I'm worth keeping. I've learned that the kind of love I want to build my life on doesn't come with escape clauses and trial separations. I stood up, looked down at the woman I'd once planned to spend my life with. She was beautiful still, familiar in ways that tugged at old habits of affection. But she was also a reminder of the most important lesson I'd learned in 39 years. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone go find what they're looking for, even if it means they might find out it wasn't you. I hope you find what you're looking for, Claire. I really do. But it's not going to be with me. I left her sitting there and drove home to the house that was completely mine now, where Lisa would be coming for dinner that evening, where we'd cook together without the weight of old disappointments, where we'd build something new on ground I'd cleared completely. 6 months later, I proposed to Lisa on my back deck, the one Claire had never gotten around to helping me finish. Lisa said yes without hesitation, like she'd been waiting for the question as long as I'd been waiting to ask it. We're planning a wedding for next fall. Lisa understands about foundations, about building things that last, about showing up every day ready to invest in what you've chosen to build together. She's never asked me to compete for her attention or prove my worth through grand gestures. She shows up every day the same way I do, ready to build something together that neither of us wants to walk away from. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd handled that night with Claire differently, if I'd fought harder, or agreed to counseling, or tried to win her back. But those wonderings never last long. I gave Claire exactly what she asked for, and in doing so, I gave myself the chance to find someone who would never ask for it in the first place. That's not revenge. It's just the natural consequence of building your life on solid ground and refusing to settle for anything less than someone who's grateful to be there with you. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.